Do you want to talk about any of like your more memorable patrols from that deployment?
Um, Trying to think of one. Uh, well, I can talk about like yeah, there was one. It was like the really bad one. So this is like pretty far into the deployment. It was like February of 2013. And at this point, we're pretty fed up with the geos. Like they would fire in all directions whenever we would take contact, and like we were so pissed off at them. And everybody was. The GLT staff was, and we would do like vehicle checkpoints, and they were pulling women out of the vehicles. And I was like, you guys can't do that. You know, you're pissing everyone off.
Yeah.
So we were all kind of writing them off at this point. Maybe getting complacent. I don't know, but so we were out going on a mounted patrol one day, and we were already lined up at the gate. We already radioed, we're departing friendly lines, everything. It was me, Captain Lease. At this couple months into the deployment, we got a corpsman. This guy, HM2 Hugo, shout out to you. He's an awesome dude. So we had a corpsman with us. So it was me, Captain Lease, one of our comm dudes in the turret. I was in the back of the Mat V, and our corpsman. So we're about to leave, and one of the Georgian translators runs up to us and he goes, "We've had an explosion in a U.S. truck." And we're like, "You're full of shit, go away." And he's like, "No, seriously, I don't know how we found out. We like flipped the radio on or something, but we heard a bunch of shit going on, and we're like, oh fuck, we gotta go." So it happened at an intersection of, it was Route Red and a little road that split off. It's called Route Tiffany, and it happened like right there. What ended up happening was they were running a supply convoy. I don't know if they were going to our position, but it was a truck of like MRAPs, and they found a radio in the middle of the road. It was actually a Prick 152, so one of the green radios we use.
Yeah.
They stopped the vehicle, and this guy, he was like the motor T. He was either the motor T chief or like the S4 Alpha of GLT, Staff Sergeant Davis. I didn't know him that well, but I knew who he was. He actually got out of the truck, picked it up, brought it back in the truck, and you know, you're told never to pick shit up, you know, but I think it was, he thought, because the Georgians carry unencrypted 152, so we think he thought it was one of theirs and they dropped it. We don't really know, but so he brought it in the truck, and it was a fucking booby trap. They hollowed it out, and they actually put Semtex in it, so plastic explosive, and he had it by his knee. He actually flipped the knob to turn it on, and it went off right in his hand, and it fucking just, yeah, so it went off in the truck in a Mat V. Like, imagine, it's like a fucking hand grenade going off.
And he's the only one in it?
No, it was full of dudes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that whole clusterfuck happened. As this is happening, we're like, it's maybe a 5-minute drive. Like, we were in a perfect situation at the perfect time, like in our vehicles, jocked up, ready to go, and we're like hauling ass. And I'm looking through the windshield, and for some reason they popped a smoke grenade. Nothing against these dudes, but like they didn't really know what they were doing. Panic might have set in. It was like supply guys and all that. So we heard all the chat. We heard squirrel, because what ended up happening was Staff Sergeant Rio got in like too many pissing contests with the Georgians. They just couldn't. They have a hierarchy of their army. They couldn't take orders from an enlisted guy.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
like that a lot.
and it was becoming an issue. So they switched him out with Captain Crispin. So we're hearing him work. He actually had an aircraft overhead, and he was working it. And I grabbed like a CLS bag from behind me, and I go, "All right, Doc, as soon as the vehicle stops, we're going to go to work." And he's like, "Yeah, dude, I got you. Like, this does not sound good." We get out of the truck, and there's a Marine there just fucking covered in blood, because he opened the door. He was from another truck, but he opened the door and grabbed Staff Sergeant Davis out of the truck. And he's laying there on the ground, and I didn't really know what was going on. Like, I ran by him on the ground because I saw another dude. I ran around the truck, and I saw the driver was leaning up against the tire. I think he might have like looked and turned, but it went off, and like his face was like kind of burned, but not bad, and like some blood was coming out of his mouth. It was a Marine Lance Corporal. So I started like patching him up, like, you know, wrapping him up. I was maybe working on him for like a minute when our corpsman came over, and he took over. He put eye patches over him because we didn't know if he had any frag in his eyes. And at this point, I was always like, don't just sit there. Like, what could you be doing? So I was like, "Hey, Doc, I'll be your scribe. Like I'll write down like his symptoms. And he's like, all right, he has this. And I was like, got you. And I handed him the piece of paper. And then I was like, what else needs to be done? He needs a stretcher. Now, fun fact about this, like a couple months prior, like literally when I had downtime at the PB, I would always go out to our truck and like sit in it and be like, what can I do to make this better? So I would take like, air like frequencies and like laminate them and like tape them on the ceiling of the truck so you knew every freak, aircraft call signs, like everything to make things faster. So I was like, you know what? I wonder if I can take one of the stretchers and like open it and like clip it to the side of the truck. Well, in doing that, this sounds kind of dumb, but like it was one of those collapsible stretchers, like you had to put your foot on it and like push it. I couldn't get it open. I don't know if it was rusty or what, but I had to call the other Motor T Marine, this guy Jackman, fucking pretty big dude. He put his foot on it. It took him all of his force to open it. And I was like, well, fuck, good thing I'm doing this, because if I had ever had to do that in a combat situation, it would be shitty. Thank God I did that, because I wouldn't have been able to open the damn thing. Yeah. So I go into the back of the truck and I unclip it and I give him the stretcher. While we're working on the driver, Sergeant White, the guy driving the truck, he went into the damaged Mat V and started like sanitizing it, so taking the gun out and getting all the ammo out of it. And both doors were open, and he looks through the open door and sees a pair of legs. He goes around, and it's the turret gunner, and I think he said he had like arterial bleeding from both of his legs.
Oh man.
And he said it was like a fucking movie. He tourniqueted him, and he was like holding his hand, and like this is like the importance of like when you're doing TCCC, they tell you get a casualty collection point so you know who's who.
Yeah.
It's a good debrief point right there, because like we were fine. Like I'm working on one guy. This dude was over here laying fucked up, and we didn't even know he was there for like a good minute. He ended up we got him stabilized, but it was like, hey man. So we
yeah, that's rough, dude.
Yeah, it was like putting like the Batman symbol up, because we had Tricky, Pedro, and Dustoff come in. So 3 platforms, one after the other. So literally like we got like the driver out, and there was the driver, the gunner, there was a Georgian riding in the vehicle. The Georgians were patching him up. So on the first helicopter, we loaded 2 US and 1 Georgian guy. And I think it was Pedro. He took off, the 60s. I think those are the PJs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they took off, and then we ran back. And at that point, I hadn't seen Captain Lease, and I see Staff Sergeant Davis laying there. And I was like, all right, hey, sir. Dude, my adrenaline's going a million miles a second. And I'm like, all right, we got 3 guys out. And I was like, what about him? I point to him, and he just looks at me, and he goes, he's dead. And I'm like, okay, like, nothing I can do. Like, okay, so me and Sergeant White put Staff Sergeant Davis on a stretcher, and that was the most fucked up thing I've ever seen in my life, dude. Like, waiting for this bird to come in, seeing a Marine laying there, like, it was horrible. Like, his left arm, like, just below the elbow was gone. His fucking bones sticking out. He had a hole in his left leg the size of a basketball. I can fucking see his femur. And his face is just like, he was dead, but his face was just all exploded. And we didn't have time to cover him up or put him in a body bag. And I'll never forget this. Like, the next 60 landed, and as we're running up to the bird, me and my buddy holding this dead Marine, the crew chief chucks out one of the stretchers, and he gets out to help us. And I'll never forget it. The crew chief looks at the guy and looks at me just like, holy fuck. And I just kind of looked at him like, yeah, it's a pretty bad day.
Yeah.
We got him out of there. It was so fun. It was bad because like I remember one of the Marines, the Motor T guy, started like freaking out. He was like, no, he's not dead. He's not dead. And I was like, yeah, he's not here anymore, dude. You need to chill. So we had to put him in one of the trucks, take his weapon away from him because he was starting to freak the fuck out. The bad thing was this intersection where it happened was a very bad area. Like, we used to set up vehicle checkpoints there, and it was like a stopwatch. Like, every time you stopped and set up a checkpoint, like 45 minutes later, you're going to start taking contact. So at this point, an EOD MRAP pulls up from a Red V, and it had Sanchez in it. He was in the turret because EOD never rolled out with a gunner because like they had like all this equipment and shit in their truck, so he would just put his saw up there. Yeah. And so I jump in. They start sanitizing the vehicle and doing their post-blast analysis. And I go inside of their truck, and I'm talking to Sanchez, and I'm talking to Squirrel at this point. I'm relaying all the kill numbers to him, And I get out of the truck, and then all of a sudden we start hearing like rounds like zip by our heads, like really fucking close.
Yeah.
And we see the guy because one of the EOD guys saw him, and he had a 203, and he popped a smoke round at him. And we were waiting for the guy to come back out, and we did. And I sighted in on him, but then this fucking dude, this EOD guy, puts his barrel right next to my head and rips off like 10 rounds from his M4. He like almost blew out my eardrums. I was like, all right, that was not good.
Thanks, dude.
So I was like, we just lost a Marine. We had like 3 guys get wounded. We're taking contact. So we actually ended up having to call tanks from Shergazi because they were just like firing at us, and we were trying to rig this vehicle for tow, trying to get all this sensitive equipment out of it. You know, I got Staff Sergeant Davis's busted ass bloody M4 in my hand. We took the radios out of the vehicle, and I was scared to like turn them off. Like I knew it wasn't rigged, but because I just heard what happened, and I was like nervous. I didn't want to turn them off, so I just like put them in my truck and collected them. So the tanks didn't end up firing, but dude, you want to talk about like an MCT when you're like, I'm up, they see me, I'm down. Like you'll never use that. We used that.
Yeah.
Like we ended up collapsing into our MAT-V, and the tanks pulled up, and they're just like, hey, we need to like tell them where to go. We need to orient them. Like, I don't know why we just didn't call them on the radio, but Captain Lease gets out of the truck and runs over to the tank. And I'm like, well, if he's going, I'm going. So we literally bounded over to the tanks, climbed on top of it, like Vietnam shit. Like we knocked on the hatch, and we're like, it's fucking in that building right there, right there, right there. And he just like, I think like him turning his turret towards it, like scared the guy. He never came out. The tanks never fired. But
you should have used the radio on the back of the tank.
I know. I've always wanted to use one of those things.
The grunt phone.
I don't know. It was like so heat of the moment. I was like, dude, you got to remember the state of mind we were in. We were so fucked up.
Yeah.
Like,
I can't imagine, dude.
I just seen this guy with like mangled to shit, and it just hurt because it was an American, you know?
Yeah.
So we get the vehicle. They tow it out of there, and we end up getting back inside of our truck. And Captain Lease was so legit about it. Like he was like, hey, like, do we have any food in here? Like, you guys should probably eat something and just calm down. And we're waiting for it to end. And then to add insult to injury, a fucking sandstorm rolls in.
Oh, fuck, dude.
Yeah. So
it was like the day of days.
Yeah, it was the shittiest day ever. So we had to wait for like an hour for the sandstorm to leave. And then we ended up driving back to Faisal. And the Marines who didn't go on patrol, like CSUN and all them, like they didn't really know what happened. 100%. So we got out, and they're just like, hey, what's up, guys? Like acting all goofy, and I just kind of like shook my head and like walked by them. And Captain Lease was like, all right, well, Staff Sergeant Davis was killed, and 3 guys got hurt. You know, it's not a good day. So